Hello and welcome along to Sundae Club, which is this week is on a Friday because I can't make it on Sunday because I'm going to be away. So what I thought we could do instead is do like a homework edition where we accomplish a couple of tasks around the main building of the app rather than kind of focusing on Ruby on Rails or any specific development stuff around that. And what I thought we could look at today is last week we made kind of built out our initial models and our initial associations in the app. And while we were doing that, we made a series of Git commits, just kind of work in progress commits, just so that we were saving as we were going along. And I thought it would be good to kind of show the process I would normally go through of rebasing those commits. So kind of taking a look at the order they're in, making sure they're all related, and then making a pull request in the GitHub Git repository, and just kind of show that process. We'll kind of do it fairly quickly, but hopefully that gives you an impression as to how I normally approach that, and then you can kind of take a look and maybe let me know if there's any kind of ways that you guys like to work as well. Okay, so I haven't got a huge amount of time this morning and slightly delayed by the stream not working on YouTube the first time around. So I'm just going to check that the audio is working real quick on the stream on my phone. Yeah, cool. So that saves me the hassle of having to redo the stream like last week. So let's look at some code and jump on in. So we are picking up almost exactly where we left off last week. We'd installed Tailwind, the CSS library for that that we were going to use on the app. And I was just taking a quick look at the end and kind of fiddling around with seeing if we could get that kind of font I was using from Adobe Fonts up and running in the app. And I don't think that worked, but I don't really want to focus on that today. So what I thought we could do is take a look at kind of the Git commits. So what I've got on the screen here, this app here, let me use a different color for that. Yeah, so we've got terminal here. And then in the back, what I've got is SourceTree, which is a free app from Atlassian. You can find a bunch of Git clients. Atlassian have SourceTree. There's a GitHub app. Git Tower is one. So many, loads of Git apps. I tend to use a combination of VS Code, SourceTree, and Terminal for my workflow, just because whatever you prefer. Sometimes I like to have a visual view of the code that's changed. Sometimes I prefer to work in the terminal, just if that's where I am already. And then VS Code has a bunch of stuff built in, so some really helpful stuff. Plus, there's a terminal built in there as well. So that's a pretty handy thing to have. Okay, so let's see. So we've got our last bit of work here, was just getting Tailwind up and running. Let's go and take a look at a couple of bits and bobs here. So that's on the code behind tailwind.config. That's can I just drag that onto there? Okay, cool. Not quite sure why the indentation hasn't worked on these. This was all done, if you remember, by that kind of Rails bytes script that we looked at. And these all came as one, and then we actually added some initial stuff to play around with it, and then we added in the typekit stuff as well. Okay, so there's a few different commits in there. So this, I'm just going to use SourceTree for this. So this dragging this is unstaged files down here, and this is staged files. So this is the equivalent of git add when you have. So for example, if we look in the terminal at git status, we are not in that directory. Then we will see the same. It's the same. This is just a view over this file. So you can see we've got packs applications, show things like that, and then anything that has been staged will be in the green up here. So that moving from this window here to this window here is the equivalent of staging them. So we're just gonna, so we installed that, we then ran yarn, it did a bunch of config stuff. I'm just gonna chuck all of this in one for now. I'm not actually that fussed around. We did change probably do the font stuff separately, so is that still in my editor. Yeah. No. I don't think that really matters. I'm just not being as thorough as I might be elsewhere. Actually, no. Let's be a bit more thorough. Let's. What was the default value for this? We just don't need. I can't remember what we had. As you go back and look at the stream, I don't know, basically, if we just leave that blank, it should still do the same thing. If we just, oh, I don't know enough about Tailwind. Can I just provide it with an empty one? Can I just do that because I don't really care about that right now. So let's say that that can go in. That can go in. That can go in. I actually might do all of these individuals. That's just actually adding in the CS classes. We don't want that yet. And then we do want this one here. So when you're using Git, you can stage individual lines. You don't have to stage an entire hunk like this. So I'm actually just going to stage these lines because I'm going to include the typekit part, which is just us trying to get the font working. We can do that separately. Whereas this is just adding in the style sheet to the actual layout so that it will work. Okay, so if we commit those, let's just see if taking out that font stuff has actually broken the app. I don't think it should have done. So if we run the server, should still run. And oh, did we give it? Cool. Cool. So it doesn't care about that, so we can commit it because it's not going to break anything. We haven't got any tests, so we're not breaking a build or anything like that. Okay, so let's bring source tree back. So we're just going to carry on. We're going to make this a whip commit as well. We're going to go through and we're on again. So everything in the, sorry, I'm not finishing a sentence. Everything on the screen here in inside source tree is available in terminal. I'm sorry if the font's a bit small. I don't think you can really change it in the settings in here. No, I think I've looked at this before and there's nothing you can do to change the font. So, all right, we actually might be better jumping to the terminal. So let's just add in whip commit for these. So this is install Tailwind CSS. I'll come back to add a note later. And then what we're going to say is we're going to whip add typekit code to enable custom web font. Cool. What was the last one? The last one was actually adding in the classes. I actually don't really want to commit that one because I don't care about that stuff right now. So we can just reset that change. We don't really care about that. Okay, so let's get out of source. Let's get out of source tree because it's a bit small for the stream. Let's jump over to terminal. We don't need the server anymore. So we can now do, now that we've committed the changes that were just at the end of last week, we can just do git status. So we're on a branch that we call initial models, but there's nothing to commit. There's nothing to do here. So let's take a look at. Oh, we got loads. Okay. So what did we do? We added the organization model, we added the channel model, we installed the RSpec Rails gem, we installed the shoulda matches gem, we added the code added by RSpec install, helpers for the shoulda matches, then we began to add the association. Okay, so the way I would normally approach this, ideally we kind of would have worked in a fairly linear pattern as well, but if you watch the stream, we weren't really doing anything like that. it was kind of bumping into things as we came across them. So we've kind of got some associated work here. We've got the adding the models. We've got doing a bunch of stuff with gems. And then we've got adding associations. Then we've got adding controllers and view. And then we've got installing the CSS thing in, which I don't really think is related to these ones. So when you're making your Git work, you're kind of in control as to what you're chopping up. So those are the groups we've got. Now in reality, the adding the models and then adding the association are more related to each other. We only happen to install these gems afterwards because we suddenly needed that functionality. But in terms of the narrative of what the code needs, installing these gems beforehand would probably make more sense, so that you're kind of prepping the code environment and these are all related, and then creating the models and then adding the associations to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to reorder these and then group them. I don't think there was anything. So that reordering them gets more complicated if they're all touching the same code, but I don't think that happened in these, and that's just what we're going to check. So I would imagine that so I actually find this less viewable for learners than a nice kind of editor. This is a bit random. I'll tell you what might be better in that case is using VS Code specifically. So let's close all of these and let's see if we can use the Git codes in VS Code. Let's say we want to a couple of Git ones. Let's try this one. Go back and look at the commits. I can't make that any bigger. Okay, so I'm hoping this is readable. You might need to kind of scroll in, to kind of make it bigger on your screen. But we can go down. This is basically just another view of that Git status. So let's look at what's involved on that initial commit. So this is a better view, I find, for learners, rather than getting a kind of vertical diff with no color coding or anything like that, no code formatting. What we really want is, what's really nice is getting something like this, which is the horizontal before and after view. So all we did is add this line here, and then in gemfile.lock we added this. Okay, so that one we like. I want to keep that. We then moved the aspect rails gem. So we just moved it so that this one is just an adjustment to this change here. So they can go together. That's actually only really needs to be one commit, because one makes the change and then one ever so slightly adjusts that change. So let's see what this one does. This one then adds the code generated by rspec install. So that one is going to be a separate commit for me, but I think some people would argue that you could put it in the commit where you do install the gem, and then install the shoulda matches goes after, and then the helper for the shoulda matches. That could possibly be one as well, because that's part of the installation of that gem, unless we wanted to make a note about that. So let's do our first change. We'll do these individually. We won't do one big rebase. We'll just do them individually. So we'll do that in terminal. So let's do. So we're on. If we remember, we're on a branch called initial models, but the branch that we're aiming at, that we want to rebase, is master. So we're going to do git rebase master, and then the -i makes it interactive. So if we were to rebase master, it would simply do a rebase. You can look that up elsewhere, and it would just do it. It wouldn't let us, it wouldn't make it interactive. It wouldn't let us edit the changes that we want to make. So the -i makes it interactive, and the rebase, I've set my editor to open up in VS Code. It would normally open in terminal, I think. I think Vim is probably the default. but I just prefer to work in here, and it also makes it a little bit easier for us to see. So hopefully these fonts are big enough. So we can say we want to do our reordering and we want to do our squishing. So this one here, well, let's do this. Let's move them around. So what we're going to do is, if you notice, I'm just moving. I moved this, like this install line here. We're going to move that up to the top because it runs top to bottom. I think it actually says that here. These lines can be reordered. They are executed from top to bottom. So we're now going to install this first. This is the first thing we're going to do. But if you remember, the commit that came after it, which is on line 4, we want those to be together. So you have two options, well, at least two options for that. You have squash and fix up. And if you see the handler, you get descriptions here. So you can use the commit. So you want to use the code that you've committed, but meld it into the previous commit. And then fix up is like squash, but you discard this commit's message. So we don't really need to have a message for this one because it's just moving something from one place to another. So it'll be irrelevant if we've squished it into the one above. So we're just going to do F for that. So you don't need to write fix up. If you look here, each command, you can just do the first letter, or you can write the entire command. So we're just going to put F here. And what this will do is this change, when we close this file, we'll move that commit to the front, to the start of the to the start of the branch, and fix up this commit into it. So it won't ask us to do anything else. That will just do it automatically. So that's the first change we're going to make. And you can do as many. We could start to do more. The next thing we're going to do is reword this commit message. But we could do that here. I'm going to do it in multiple steps. But you can do. We could do that now as well if we wanted. So I'm going to show you how to do multiple interactive rebases. Cool. So that has now basically happened. So if you look, our editor over here has adjusted the order of those things. So if we go to show more commits, this is now the first one. And what we can do, we can show that here as well. If we just go back into our git log one line, this is now our first commit. Cool. And the other one is gone. It's been smushed into it, and that is still adding it to the right place. So this, now let's do our reword. So we're going to kind of create this chronology. So let's do our reword now. So we can go git rebase master I for interactive. Same thing again. Now we get the updated version. So this is first, and what we're going to do is reword it. That's down here on line 17. It says you just need to rename it as R. And we can save that and close it. And what it will do is open the commit as if you had just done git commit with all of the same changes in it, and put you in an editor. So whatever message was in here before, we can now change, and it won't touch anything about the commit other than the message. So we don't want it to say whip at the front. We want to do install rspec rails gem. Actually, I don't think you don't need to say a lot on your commit messages if they just do one thing. So that is literally all we're doing here. There's nothing any other developer would need as context. We don't really, at this point in working in a team, need to say what rspec is. I would feel. So install rspec rails gem will get us through, I think. I would say the minority of commits that I do get a one-liner, but this type of commit tends to. Maybe if it was like updating the gem as well, unless there was anything of note, you just say, hey, I updated it. It's obvious to any other developer what's happening there. They don't need more context. But you get to decide that as the author of the code. Okay, so let's go and do another one. Let's get the next one down. So that's cool. So we now shouldn't have whip in that first message. Yep, so it's just rspec rails, install rspec rails gem. So now we're going to do install our shoulda matches gem. Oh, add code. Oh no, we've got add code generated by rspec install. Let's do that one next. And we are gonna say is that? Can we still do on your mid rebase? Can you still do get show? Yeah, cool. So what do we get? I guess this is that those default helpers you get. I don't think I changed any defaults, which is the note I'm going to leave on that commit message. Okay, so we want that one to go next. So, yep, we're going to install the RSpec routers gem, and then we're going to add code generated by RSpec. Install. Okay, so we're going to reword this one, but we do want it as a separate commit. Again, there's no hard and fast rules here. I'm deciding these things. So if you're a learner and you're nervous about these things, you just gradually get more confident as you read more commit messages, as you work with your team more or anyone else, anything on open source, what they expect from you and what you expect from them. Different teams will run different policies around what should be in commit messages and things like that. So don't panic. There's no like universal laws that are guiding these things. And if you're working on your personal projects, you might choose not to be as diligent as you would be on a team project. So I'm going to save and close that file, and it's going to open the commit. So the way that I've always kind of thought of commit messages is there's a blog post I read at one point, and it said your commit message should basically say, imagine it's prefixed with the words, if you run this commit or something like that, it will, and then like imagine that sentence is prefixed, and then everything in your commit message comes after that. So it will add code generated by running RSpec install. So this could actually be add RSpec helpers and not add RSpec helpers, and then we could do, don't know what the, is it RSpec or RSpec? Don't know what the capitalization of that is. Don't usually care enough. So RSpec, add RSpec helpers. So in this one we can say rather than just using a one-liner, we're actually just adding the RSpec helpers. This code was generated by running the default RSpec install script. We didn't change any, I don't think we did anyway. Let's load that. Nope. What was the other one? Spec helper. No, that doesn't have that helper stuff in from the later shoulda matches in, does it? No, it doesn't at this point. So I think we do add that here. We didn't change any of the default values. Cool, that'll do. Like that's enough context, but to me it would make sense if I saw that commit, what's in the code, what's in the message. Would I expect to have any additional context? Probably not. The fact that it was just the default ones would tell me what I needed to know, and then I could move on. That's kind of what I'm thinking when I'm working on the git commit message. What would I or another developer really want to know at this point if they're hunting back through git commits to look for a specific change in a line? So we can close that one, and then our rebase carries on. So we can go back to the terminal. No, it wasn't this one, was it? It was here. Let's do another rebase. So again, like I said, you could have done all these in one. I'm doing lots of tiny little rebases, but you could have done one mega rebase. Totally, when you learn how to use the tool, it's totally in your control. So now we want to do our shoulda matches gem. Again, this is so that we're kind of creating this narrative flow of the pull request that we're going to make. So it's like we did this helped us prep for that, then we did, using that stuff in prep, we then did these things with it. That's kind of the logic. So shoulda matches think and then go here. So that then creates the flow we were talking about earlier with the group. So that's first four are installing gems and stuff we need for them, then adding our models, these two, then adding our associations, and then adding our controllers and views. And I'm not going to include this at all. That's going to be a whole other bit of work, which is a good thing about working with work in progress before you start committing to master or anything. You can just like, these two are totally unrelated. That's a whole other thing. Cool, so we've moved those around. What does the aspect help us? Oh, okay, so then we added that in, and I was then debating would they be 2 or 3? Sorry, 1 or 2 commits. I think they would continue to just be 1 commit. I'm just going to check the audio. Still working on the stream. Yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm just paranoid now that after I had an issue last week. Let's do these as 1 commit so we can fix that one up. We can reword this one. This is an example. We'll do 2 steps at the same time here rather than doing 2. So we've got reword on the first one, fix up on the second one. So we'll end up with only this commit, and we will reword its message because this one will get smushed up into it. Not using any technical language correctly, but you kind of get the gist, hopefully. So we're going to install. We've also added the. So I'm going to write the git commit as if that previous commit has already been smushed in. You'll see that in the modified files down here that hasn't yet happened. If you remember, the rebase happens top to bottom, but I'm going to write the message as if it does happen, as if that has been smushed in, because we know that's about to take place. So we've also added the default helpers that RSpec needs to use the shoulda matches. Again, just even saying that they're the default helpers, we didn't make any specific changes. So anyone who reads the commit would be like, oh, okay, like they weren't trying anything fancy here. They're just the default helpers. That would be my thought on adding that commit message. So that's then done. Let's go back and do. Well, let's do get log. Sorry. So you can see where we are now. We've now got our 3 helpers. Our 3 commits. Install RSpec Rails gem. Add RSpec helpers. Install shoulda matches gem. I've just done 1 line on here, that --1 line. If you were to take that out, we would actually see our longer messages down here. Yep, so then you can see the more helpful longer messages in there as well. So you can just do --1 line if you don't care about that. Cool, so let's take a look at our rebase again and go in. Now I've got these. I'm gonna add our organization model and our channel model. We do want these to be separate commits at the moment. Let's take a look at what adding in some. Opening up a new tab in Terminal has got really slow recently. I'm not quite sure what has happened there. So let's see what's in here. So we just added an empty organization class. We added in the migration for it, which just has name and slug. We added our schema change. And that's it. We didn't add in a test for this initially, which we probably would, but we didn't. It doesn't do anything, so we wouldn't be testing anything anyway, so that's fine by me. Okay, so let's do the reword for that line. So we're waiting for the editor, so let's jump back here. Oh, let's do 2. No, my memory is not good enough for that. Let's just do this one first. So add organization model to be able what are we doing here? We want organizations to have multiple users, and we want organizations to have multiple streams. So we want to be able to keep the language simple. Make that capital as well. To be able to organizations as owner. I think in a Git commit, you don't really want to say too much about. You kind of want to indicate where your plans are going, but you can't talk about code that isn't there yet in too much detail, because if you don't end up getting there in the way you thought, it's gonna not make any sense to the person reading it. So you could almost one-line this, but you just kind of want to give a sense of, or I would personally want to give a sense of what the thinking was in adding this. So we want to be able to model owners. Let's actually be more specific. So initially, we think we want to be able to model organizations as owners of channels, and that they can be associated with multiple users. The thought being that this can be a mechanism for multiple users to manage. That's probably too far. At this early stage, only adding, I can't remember what it was, the name and the slug for the organization. As we don't know what else need. Yeah. Okay, that'll do for me. That's even that first one I think might be able to. Yeah, let's say so. So we know we're introducing channels in the next commit, so we can mention that. I think we're mentioning users. We don't even have users in the system yet, so we think we want to be able to model organizers. Owners is also a keyword, so like as having many channels. So this commit creates a basic model we can use for this. At this early stage, we're only adding the name of the slug for the organization. We don't know what else we'll need yet. Okay, cool. So I'm going to copy that just in case it's useful for the next one as well. So we can save and close, and that will make the rest of the rebase happen. Let's then do another one. Again, doing these each individual rebases. There's no limit to the number of times you can do that. So then we can just reword this one. This is just adding our channel model, and it's the same deal with, I think we just added in an empty model at this point. Yep. So what did we have there? So add channel model. Okay, so initially we think we want to be able to what did we add to channels? I think we only added name and slug for those, didn't we? Name, slug, and description. We're introducing a channel model to be. I'm actually not going to add any more than that. I'm not 100%. What I will do is I'm going to put these in the plural, like we rather than I, because I'm assuming that the kind of live stream is another person working with me. So we weren't sure of the naming here. This channel is also a keyword in, I think, action cable. So if we're finding this an issue later, know that there was no deeper thinking behind this and it can be renamed. I'm kind of just like trying to put in what people were thinking at the time when they wrote the code, just to help out someone who's like, oh, I really want to rename this, but I'm scared of it for some reason. Think over here, cool. So that is adding the channel model and then running another rebase. We now have our 3 groups, 1, 2, and then we've got our associations. So this is our next 2. So let's see what's happening here. So here we're just running. Oh, that doesn't add the association, it just adds the migration, is that right? Add organization ID to channel, so it's just the migration for that. And does the next one then add the code? Because we don't really need those to be 2 commits particularly. Oops. Sorry, wrong one. So that adds in the associations and an RSpec test for each. Okay, so they don't need to be 2 commits. Okay, great. So in the rebase, those are basically the same thing. So we can fix that one up to there. Oops, no, wrong one. We can fix that one up to there and reword this one. So this will now include our, after the rebase is complete, it will include our migration, the schema change, the changes to the 2 models, and the RSpec tests for those. So we can add association between, well, let's say what it is. It has association between organization and channel. We want an organization to have many channels. I'm not gonna use that, to have many channels in order to later we just really want it because that's what we want to model. That's this initial stage, we want an organization to have many channels, as that feels like how the ship will be modeled. Oh. Yeah, I'm not really sure is how the relationship is modeled in the real world. So, you know, like I might have Sundae Club, but then maybe like Homework Club might be a separate channel or something like that. That's it. There's not a lot of complex there. It's just a simple. Again, as you move from that learner stage to be more confident, you would probably write shorter git commits for simpler Rails-based changes. So I might not even add that initial paragraph, but maybe I just want to say there's nothing major behind my thinking. So let's close that one, and then the last one that we want to do is our. Let's do. Oh no, I'm in the wrong one. Cool. Get rebased again, and we're just gonna do the showing of the controller and view. So we added a controller. Set the channel, and then we showed it. Okay, so that's fair enough. I probably wouldn't do that normally, but because it's good, so like building blocks. So let's just reword this one. We don't care about these two because they're going away. Add controller. Let's show you. Something working in a browser at this initial stage. So this is a very basic view showing very basic controller action, loading the resource and showing a couple of attributes in the view. Note that we haven't added any tests at this initial stage, but as there's no logic going on at the moment, felt that was okay. So it can still make it into master even though there's no tests just at this initial stage. Cool. So stop that, and that is now part of it. Okay. So the problem we have now, having rebased, so that this is the shape of our PR that we want up. Again, if I just do log one line, this is the shape of our PR here, and then we've got two commits on the end here that we don't want, and they're in our branch. So what we want to do, our head is up here. What we're going to do is make a new branch called add tailwind, or like install tailwind, and then we're going to leave that branch on this head, but then take our initial models branch back down to here. So we can do that by doing git branch install tailwind. Then when we do git log one line, you'll see we now have two branches at this point here. That actually might be a little bit easier in source tree to view. So might be easier when we actually move the other one back. So you can see we've got two branch tags here. This is very small. I'm aware of that. If I do, yeah, command plus doesn't even work. They're not very. I might try and install the GitHub app for this in the future. But what we want to do, we are still, if we do git status, we are still on our initial models branch. So what we're going to do is do a rebase of this branch. But we're just going to lop off the last two commits. So if you notice, if you remove a line here, that commit will be lost. So that's actually what we want to do here. So we're going to chop these two off, save it and close. And then if we go over to source tree, you'll see that initial models, this tag here, now stops here, but our install tailwind has everything from this plus the extra two on. So initial models is now as we wish it to be to create our pull request. So hopefully that makes some sense. So we've reshaped our branch totally and done a nice rebase there. So let's just check where we are. We are on branch initial models, and what we can do is our origin is GitHub. We can just do git push. And just do git push origin. Will this do autocomplete? No. Git push origin initial models. So you're saying there git push, and then which remote do you want to go to? It's origin, which for us is GitHub, and then which branch name, initial models. So that's got up to GitHub, and really helpfully these days you get the little, you can create a pull request on GitHub, and so you actually get the link you need rather than having to even bother going through the UI. And in, if I had the thingy installed or was using terminal, this would actually be clickable, but I haven't done that yet. So let's go over to a browser and actually see what that looks like. So let's go over to GitHub. We'll bump the font size up so it's visible. And so you can see here our commits, and anyone that's got an extra little comment in has these little dots going down, and they're great, they're in the right order, they look good. And then below is all of the code that we've touched. So that's going to be everything in our pull request. This is going to be fairly, depending on what size you're used to, a fairly large or small pull request. And so we're now then given the title and a description box for the pull request. So this isn't part of Git, the Git commits. This is for GitHub for the pull request in GitHub. So this will be something that people will reference if they're looking for more context around the changes being made. And again, if you are working on your own and you don't want to create pull requests, totally makes exact sense. We could just merge them into master ourselves. We don't need to bother making pull requests or anything. I just want to demo that and keep that as our workflow. So here we can say we want to it's initial testing gems setup, adding initial models and associations, initial gems, initial models, associations, yep, that'll do for now. So we've kind of said everything we need to say here in our commit messages. What would I normally put in here? So there would be any other information that I wanted anyone reviewing the code to take a look at. So this PR contains initial setup work, the models, and the to get started, and also there. This PR contains our initial set of work. The models are a best guess as to what we'll need to get started, and the controller and UI are mainly to demonstrate getting something working in the browser. That's all we really need here. And what I am going to chuck in, if I just jump over to my other monitor, is the links to where these were. So that was done on a live stream, so we can actually put the link in, which is pretty good because I can't do that normally. So if you, I'm kind of saying if you literally want to watch this get made, you can go and watch it. So we can copy that link here. Live stream. This was this work was done. Yeah, we can preview that. Can you embed that? I'm gonna guess no. But I am interested to find out. So if you click embed on YouTube, sorry, I'm just on the other browser in there. I do that. No, okay, cool. No, there's no other fancy way to do it. Okay, cool. And we can set it as a draft if we need to by clicking that, but we're good. So we can pull request. And that's it. So you can kind of see our pull request here. We've got 279 additions. We didn't remove any code. You can see the commits that we've just rebased going through here. And normally at this stage, what we'll set up later is the ability for our tests to run in CI and have that kind of working locally and on CI on continuous integration, so that we would know if they were going to work or not. And then everything in here. So that would then normally get reviewed by another team member or someone leading the project or whatever. And they can also go through, and there are code review tools here, but we don't have any on that. So continuous integration is, so GitHub's way ahead of me here. So GitHub Actions and several other apps can be used automatically. Don't have time to look into that today, but that's something I want to look at. So let's assume this is all amazing. And I am just going to merge our own code here. So we are going to merge that pull request. Now I could merge it locally and then push the branch again, and that would be detected automatically in GitHub. But I think we'll just use the... actually, do I want the bubble commit stuff? So you get create a merge commit, squash and merge. No, I don't think I've ever hit squash and merge. And then rebase and merge. I think at this point we'll just keep a single, kind of single history. We don't really need like full merges or anything like that. So we can just do rebase and merge on this. Confirm the rebase and merge. Everything should go purple. Yep, so you can successfully do that, and we can delete our branch. Oh, that can happen automatically. I'll go and check the setting for that later to make that happen automatically. So this is open source, so you can just go and look at this if you're interested in any of this stuff. Those are all now in master. So now when we jump over to our code, you'll see that master now has multiple commits. Now has 8 commits. And this is now master. Now what's happened is our local environment is now out of date. So if we go to git checkout master here, and we do git log, just see them one at a time. We only have one commit. So then what we want to do is we can just do git. We can do pull origin master. Cool, everything's in there that we need. And we can delete that other branch, so we can then do a git branch minus the initial models. I think it'll say that it hasn't been merged. So again, you can do the merge locally and then push up, and it will know that it's been merged, but that's not. It will say, hey, I haven't been merged. Don't really care about that. So we can remove that. That's then gone locally, but it's already in master. And what we should have, if we go back to source tree, you might have trouble seeing this. But if we refresh this now, so that's actually still got initial models there. That will go away eventually. Oh, I think we can do git prune to get rid of that anyway. We now have master up here, and we still have install Tailwind. So let's jump over to install Tailwind. So we can do git checkout install Tailwind. So now we're on that branch. Do git log. And we have all of those ones, which we no longer want. So what we want to do now is rebase that against master. And let's see what it's got in there. We only have the 2 that we need because the others have already been merged in. So it knows that doesn't need those ones anymore. You don't need the 2 at the end that we had earlier. So we can save that and close it. And now if we do git log --1 line, master is here, and install Tailwind just has these 2 commits. We can pick that up in another episode. So that what we went through there was having a series of work in progress commits. We went and did lots and lots of rebases individually, but we basically rebased that to create like a narrative flow. Reworded our commit messages and then turn it into a pull request. We then merged that pull request, and then we did that on our remote on GitHub, and then we came back and deleted the local branch, and we had a couple of commits that we didn't rebase in. We moved those onto another branch. So what we did is we rebased that other branch and just took those other commits away. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what's involved in that. So that's actually, not sure how long we've been working, about 45 minutes, I would imagine. And kind of rebasing does, you might think of it as kind of a throwaway part of the process when working, but actually if you're writing detailed commit messages and things like that that really help your team understand the code you've been working on and the person reviewing it, it's a lot of time and thought that goes into the language being used and how you're actually dividing up your work. So hopefully that's useful. Let me know if you have any questions or anything like that, and have a great day. Like I said, I'm not around on Sunday, so please bear that in mind. But I will see you the Sunday after that. So have a great day.